Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 214 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Vai.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone. Our guest is a bassist, songwriter, and rock veteran whose career criss-crosses with some of the biggest names in hard rock history, including a tie to Paul Stanley and the early days of Kiss. He's a founding member of the bands New England and Alcatrazz. He has played with guitar gods such as Steve Vai and just released an honest, no frills memoir called No Bass, No Party, that we're going to touch on this later. On this episode, we dive into the mindset of the legendary GARY SHEA. Hey, Gary, thanks for hearing.
Hey, guys. How's everyone doing? Hello.
Gary, I got to tell you, we've had a lot of, full circle moments on the show, and having you here is another one. I saw New England open for Kiss back in 1979 here in Montreal. And now here we are talking on the show. It's so fantastic to have you here. Thanks again.
Well, thank you. You can confirm that we got a standing ovation before we started playing that night in Montreal. It blew my mind.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody, our band stood there and went, love Montreal.
Oh, Montreal is a hockey town. It's a music town. We love our music. And I tell people, oh, Kiss was my first concert. No, it wasn't. It was New England. You guys opened for the band. Yeah. And I remember it was like, I was just there to see Kiss. I cared about nothing else. But man, when you guys opened up, it's like, shit, these guys are good, man. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
That's beautiful. It's so great to have you, Gary. So once again, thank you for your time. And I'm sure we're going to have a blast for the next hour.
Yeah. So let's start the hour with, at the very beginning. So what was that first piece of music or artist that really lit your fire as a kid?
Well, this is kind of different. I was more or less 11 or 12 years old, and that was the early 60s. And there was no Beatles, no Rolling Stones. I loved The Girl from Ipanema. It was on the radio at that point. It was number one. And I just loved the samba, the whole Brazilian thing, the Portuguese language. And I think that's one of the sexiest songs ever written, and probably still is. That, and also the theme from When a Man Loves a Woman, which I just taught myself how to play on ukulele last week. I'm probably proud of that. But I love that music. And I was just, bopping along in the car, and it caught my ear. And I don't know why, but it was just the sound of the bass, just the samba, because the bass is the heartbeat of any song, whether it's country western or rock music, jazz music. The bass is what you kind of groove along to. It's what you tap your foot to and your pencil, whatever. And people don't play music. A lot of people don't understand what the bass does, but that's the foundation of the song.
That's
and
right.
It ties in between the drums and the other instruments in the band. So I get to play like a drummer, and play the boom boom with the drums hitting. And I get to play the parts that the piano player or the horn players could play. I can play the melodic part.
Right.
Well, the drums can't do that. They can do the tuning higher and lower, but not the actual sound of the notes. So the bass is a pretty interesting instrument. I started playing guitar, and one day I picked up a bass, and I was just taken by it.
Do you remember your earliest moment playing the bass? So why the bass for you?
Well, I was in high school. And by that point, in mid-high school, early high school, I bought a guitar. But by that time, the Beatles had come out and the Rolling Stones and all that. And my friends had a band down the street. It looked like fun. So I figured I'd hang with those guys and quit the track team, bought a guitar. And so I had your basic Japanese guitar that I bought in a department store. And that's part of the thesis of my book, is that how can a regular person just walks into a department store, a mall, and buys a guitar, and how do you get to play in arenas around the world and make records, and how does that work out? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I bought the Japanese guitar, took some preliminary lessons, and worked my way into buying a brand new Fender guitar when I was 16. I bought a 1965 Fender Stratocaster in 1965 for $267 back then. And those guitars today are worth about $15,000, $20,000 if you got them, because they were made so well. This before CBS took over that company and didn't make them so well anymore in the 70s. But I had that beautiful brand new guitar in my bedroom. I would wake up in the morning and touch it and play it, go to school, come home, touch it and play it again till it got dark out. And one day I started playing with some friends of mine in town. taking lessons from the best guitar player. And he and I went one day to a small store, a mom and pop kind of electronic shop that had a tube tester. And we were going to test the tubes in our amplifiers to see if they were good or bad. And in that little store, along the walls were a number of guitars for sale, used guitars, about a dozen of them. And my friend was looking around, I was looking up the wall, and I saw this Fender bass hanging from the wall. And it's the same shape as the guitar I bought, same company, same inventor, Leo Fender, who, you know, designed all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it down from the wall and I said, look at this thing. It's like an aircraft carrier. This thing's huge. Look at the strings. They're like this big. They're not like pieces of spaghetti. This is dude, some serious grabbing on here. Got to be strong to play this baby.
Mm-hmm.
And when we plugged it in, it shook the room. And I said, I'm in.
Nice.
This is cool. You know, the guitar.
You never went back. That's
never
it.
went back. At that precise moment and that day, and I had some extra money saved up. I worked in an orchard picking apples, $1 an hour. I had the money and I bought it for $125. And I took it home and looked at it. And I went back to one of my friends went to their parents' house on the weekends and we jammed. I learned all the songs we've been playing on the bass. So I was learning Young Rascal songs and Beatles songs. And we took it from there. A bunch of us out of that group of people started a band. And we took off from there. And I've been playing ever since. Been playing bass and playing in bands ever since that day.
Mm. Was there a particular bassist that you idolized that helped you develop your style?
Well, yeah, all the great bass. There's so many great bass parts. And a lot of them are, you know, studio people like Carol Kay, who played with the Beach Boys. And she played on Good Vibrations, Hawaii Five-0,
Mm-hmm.
all the soundtracks. And amazing bass player. But probably John also from The Who was my guy. When I heard The Who do My Generation and I Can See It for Miles, they were the heaviest, biggest, loudest band on earth. They blew off the Rolling Stones and the Kinks and all those bands. They were 3 times louder and more powerful and very aggressive and from the streets. And they just spoke to me. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to play in a band like Johnny Russell with, you know, amplifiers and go for it. You know,
it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that because, you know, when you were describing the way you play, that you were not only following the drums or you were not just following the song with a couple of notes. So John was well known for playing the bass as if it was the guitar, right? So he was putting lines all over the fret. You know, it was amazing the way he played.
Right. He always called himself a bass guitarist.
That's right. Exactly.
A bass player.
Yeah.
He said, I'm a bass guitarist. And Peter Townsend always say he's the guitar player. I'm not.
That's right. Yeah.
He did play all this really, really, really cool stuff. He invented, you know, the round wound strings and the big amplifiers for Marshall, the band did. And very innovative and played great. And of course, Paul McCartney had all the cool bass lines going.
Yeah.
And being a piano player, he's got the left hand of the piano, or the bass parts. And he had really cool, his bass parts augmented the song. They were part of the song. Just pick any Beatles song, the bass is all over the place. It might be very simple, but it's in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's fast, but there's just the right notes at the right time. You link the chord progressions as they go by with the bass, and it weaves throughout the song.
Right.
So I was intrigued by that. So I learned a lot of, you know, Beatle bass parts and, you know, Bulldog, all those songs, boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm,
That's all bass. You know, Helter Skelter, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when Led Zeppelin finally came along, I loved Ronnie Wood and the Jeff Beck group. He was a great bass player, Ronnie Wood. He doesn't get recognition for that since he was a guitar player, and then he became a guitar player in small faces, in Faces rather, with Rod Stewart, and later and he played with Jeff Beck. But the 2 Jeff Beck albums, the first ones, the bass is amazing. Great bass sound, great bass playing. He's a really good bass player. I saw them live twice like that.
Okay.
Small concert halls, and I even went out and bought the same bass he was playing and got rid of the first bass I got.
Really? Oh my God. Wow. Wow.
But I did it. And so he was very influential. And then along came Led Zeppelin, and John Paul Jones is truly amazing.
Yeah.
He does all the same thing. Plus he plays keyboards and mandolin and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just really melodic and the bass was heavy, and the bass was recorded really well. That was the first Led Zeppelin album, like Communication Breakdown. The bass just was like boom. Somebody finally figured out how to make it powerful.
Up front, yeah.
Because it was up front and in your face, and all the music was on those records. Because Jimmy Page knew what he was doing. They were all he and Paul were both, John Paul Jones were both studio guys.
Yeah,
so a lot of experience in recording studios, and it showed when they did their first record right till today. They're still out there playing.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you know, the way, now that you're talking about Zeppelin, that was one of my questions. I just wanted to have your take on John Paul Jones. If you think about it, the first albums from Zepp, so you know the combo of John Paul Jones and Bonham, that defined basically the sound, you know, of Led Zeppelin. You know, they were up front there. So of course, you know, great stuff from Jimmy, but you know, those two guys, they were a wall. You know, that was amazing.
They were just driving the train, you know. And I went to the Newport Jazz Festival, and they were the last act on the bill. Nobody knew who they were, and I, being a big fan of the Yardbirds and Jeff Becker, knew exactly who they were. And people were leaving. It was a Sunday night, and they're walking out of this field, and we were going forward. And they start off a Communication Breakdown. Everybody turned around and went back to the stage and went, "What's going on?" So that was amazing. That was a good night.
That was
very, very inspiring, very great music, still great music. I compare all the bands I hear today to a lot of those bands from then. A lot of those bands back then, the technology isn't as great as some of the new bands have at their disposal today.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff, all that stuff was done pretty much live, you know, one time through, and that's it. You learn how to play the song correctly. There's no going back and fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's some great bands out today, some new bands, but like some younger people go, "Oh, it doesn't sound that good. I don't see why you think it's heavy." Well, you have to understand the time. They're doing things in 4-track. Right. 8-track was even invented then, let alone 24-track, 48 tracks, 64 tracks. So,
and speaking of influences, and not only bassists, but you know, all of the musicians, were there any other musicians or even local musicians that helped you shape your musical path?
Well, there were some local bands that were really good. There was a band called the Blue Beats that we were friends with. They're on Columbia Records. Very, very good band, 4-piece band. They opened when Cream came through that part of America. I was in Connecticut, and they came through there. They were the opening band. They were picked to be the opening band. They were really, really good. And we used to go to their shows and take notes and what are they doing that makes them so good. And can we do that? And then I'd actually study. I would go to all the school dances and watch the bands and see what I thought they were doing right, what they're doing wrong, why are some bands better than other bands. And we learned back then a lot of showbiz tricks. We learned the music business. And I tried to convey that in my book about the music business being 85% music and about 15% talent. You can be the greatest guitar player in the world, but if you don't understand how the business of that works, you're never going to get out of the house. Mm-hmm. So even at a young age, we had the Blue Beats booking. Their manager was booking us. And he'd tell us things like we'd be at the end of we'd be playing in a hall, like a Knights of Columbus hall or a Moose Club or something. And he said, "I don't care what you're doing, but after the show, don't be sitting there with your girlfriend or something or your friends. Go out and talk to the disc jockey and the promoter and the guy to put the show on, the police, who's ever in the room, talk to him. And then later on, I don't care who you go to bed with, either sex, it doesn't matter. That's your thing. But right now, you know, you're working, and this is part of it. It's all part of the whole linking up and having a network of people.
Right.
We learned that very young. We went into that, and that brings us into the KISS world, which is they're the experts at that.
Do you recall, Gary, what was your first concert, and how did it affect you? So in your life, you know, you've been doing this for so long, so that must have been quite a shock for you.
My actual first concert, I saw a band called the Jive Five in a park that my friend's father brought us to, and they were a soul band. They had a big hit record, and they were you know, funky. They were great. By the time I started playing music, I got to see the Beach Boys. I was a big Beach Boys fan. I used to make model cars, and I was really into the car thing and try to look like a Beach Boy, even though I was 3,000 miles from California. And as you know, being from Montreal, the ocean up there is cold. No, I'm down
That's
here.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
No.
The Beach Boy. Yeah. There's a song, a band had a song called New York's a Lonely Town when you're the only surfer boy in town.
That
Who
is
sang
true.
that? That was a hit record. But I mean, so I was trying to be a Beach Boy. And I saw the
Okay.
Beach Boys was one of my first shows, and they were great. And the opening band was the Buffalo Springfield,
Oh,
the
okay. Mhm.
original band with Bruce Palmer playing bass, and of course Stephen Stills and Richie Furay and Neil Young, Dewey.
Okay.
They were great, and I just thought that this is great. And right at that point, I saw I saw Jeff Beck play at Yale University in a small hall. That was great. And at that point, in the late '60s, I saw a lot of bands all at once. So it was it was not really a defining moment where that lit the switch. I was kind of working into it. I listened to a lot of records prior to that.
Yeah.
So when I did see the people, I knew what I was going to expect in a way. It doesn't like you walk in a room and you get hit by the face. Never saw a band before.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of a lot of bands, and that inspired me to want to be in the band as opposed to just be a fan and listen to it. And, choose a different way of work for the rest of my life.
Right.
I thought at one point maybe I'd be a history teacher and teach ancient history.
Wow.
Playing bass is more fun.
So speaking of first concerts, again, my first show was New England, and I want to talk about New England a little bit. So how did the band originally come together? So what was the chemistry like in those early rehearsals?
We had a great time. Way, way back in the early '70s, I had a Boston band that moved down to Connecticut near the University of Connecticut. And the drummer in my high school band was going to college then. And he came in one night and he said he saw this amazing band from North Carolina playing this cool club that was there. And he said that they were a progressive rock band, kind of like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, with a lead singer. They had no guitar player. They had big keyboards, big drums, crazy bass, and a singer, hair down to their feet. And every song was 30 minutes long. And he said they were amazing, amazing, just simply amazing. And since he's one of my best friends, I said, okay, I guess I missed something, Wish I could have seen that. And then the name of the band was Fatback. 3 years later, I had moved to England, played in bands, came back to Boston, and I was in Boston again. A friend of mine, she told me she knew a band looking for a bass player in Boston. I said, just came back from England playing all these cool guys. Me out, sent me back to America. They had to go to jail. So I came back. And I was sitting there kind of going, man. She goes, I know it's a really good band. I said, man. And she went through a series of names. And then finally she said they were called Fatback. And I said, really? And I said that they speak with Southern accents. And she said, yes. I said, give me the phone number. And I met Jimmy Waldo. And that was it. This is the band that my friend told me about. They moved to Boston and they had replaced just about everybody. They had changed drummers. Hirsch Gardner, who's from Toronto. Hirsch went to the Berklee School of Music in Boston, graduated. He was the drummer. And they added a guitar player, John Fannin, who's a great guitar player and songwriter. Jimmy on keyboards, had a singer named Kenny Neely. And they wanted a bass player. The guy they had was kind of a Chris Squire kind of guy. He was a light-sounding sound and too complicated. And so they owned a house. I went to their house and walked in. I couldn't believe downstairs was full of gear, all kinds of junk wired together and bare wires, Band-Aids on it and tape, making sparks while we're playing the songs. It sounded amazing. It was all fix it yourself, home repair. We haven't got the money, but we're gonna get the most out of this junk, and modify this and streamline that. And I was like, holy God. And they were great. They played their original stuff. And I said, I want to do this. This is remarkable. So I got the gig, and we started playing clubs. And in the year 1975, we played 90 gigs in that 1 year. And we had a promoter in New Hampshire. He got us a lot of gigs in Canada. So we were playing in Stansted, Magog, and all the schools and clubs in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Western New York, Albany. And we were working like crazy. And a chance came along where John, a guitar player, had a couple of friends who were managers. We approached those guys to manage us. They didn't want to manage the band, but they were managing a girl like Linda Ronstadt and offered Jimmy and John a gig to make a record and go with her. So the band broke up.
Oh.
It's a great band. You know, we're playing in Maggot, Emperor God, you know, it's great. Instead, the place called the Chopping Block. One night, there's too much snow, we can't play. No one's coming, so free bar. Just us and the owner sit at the bar drinking. Those are great times, you know. So the band broke up. I went to California and came back, and we reformed as just four of us now. And we were recording in Philadelphia. We had a deal to record with a friend of John's in Philadelphia who was working with all the R&B bands, but he wanted to work with a rock band, and said he'd record us. And the deal was if we ever get a record deal, we would do it in Philadelphia, or we'd pay for the time we used up. We agreed to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, make a long story short, we spent 2 years in the woods, and we rehearsed in the daytime for two and a half years.
Wow.
Every day, like 9, 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. Like Jimmy and I, we drove taxi cabs at night in the snow. 3 o'clock in the morning, bringing the drunks home from the bars, all the drunk students at Boston College and Harvard, you know, bring them back to mommy's house at nighttime. Throw them on the lawn. Did that.
That's called perseverance, man. That is actually.
That's my book. I say perseverance. You know, I'd be driving a cab, you know, and I was in my late 20s, and once in a while I get somebody, an intelligent fair, and like a lawyer or somebody, and they say, "What are you doing?" I say, "Well, you know, we're trying to start this band, and we're doing it like this." And the guy was saying, "You guys, you strike me as like you know what you're talking about. You're gonna do okay. Hang in there." And you get that one little word of encouragement off a stranger like that, and it would last for a couple of days. It's like, you know, the guy, he agreed with me. That's we're on the right road to what we're trying to do. We don't want to play in bars anymore. We could have the biggest truck and the most lights in a little teeny bar. Big deal, we got strobe lights. It doesn't add to our getting our music out or being allowed to play original music because the clubs want you to play cover songs and play Rolling Stone songs, which we didn't do. Mm-hmm. So we were outcasts. So we had to get a record deal, all or nothing. And that led into us meeting Kiss in Rhode Island. That's how New England came around. At that point, we hadn't decided on the name New England. We were just four guys in the woods playing music and going for it. And some people from Electric Records in Boston heard us and went, wow. Took our tape to a Kiss gig in Providence, Rhode Island, and those guys went, wow, who are these guys? And the guys said they're in the woods. These four crazy.
Where are these guys coming from?
You know? And they said, well, can they do this live? Because this is really amazing. It's very orchestrated, like the Moody Blues. A lot of orchestral things in the background, a lot of singing. Everybody sang. And can they do it live? And the guy said, they're even better live. Wow. The demo tape's amazing. We had a 16-track demo tape, which nobody had in those days. It was very expensive to record. Mm-hmm. And when they did come see us live, we didn't let them down. We had Clive Davis come see us. Bill O'Coin, of course, managed Kiss. We had 6 record company presidents come see us, which was pretty rewarding.
Amazing. That's amazing.
That was about a year and a half before you saw us at the Forum. That happened about a year and a half before that.
And you got to work with Paul Stanley as well?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so here we are, and we're doing these demos in Philadelphia. We're producing ourselves with our friend engineering it. And it sounded great. And we knew what we wanted to do. And when we were offered a record deal, we didn't really need a producer that was going to reshape everything like some producers do to a new band, where the guy comes in and just changes all the drum parts or gets some other guy to play the saxophone besides your guy. That didn't happen. So we were looking into different producers, thinking that'd be cool, work with this guy, you know. And the guys in Electra in Boston sent Brian May our demo tape in England. We thought it'd be cool if Brian May could do our record. That'd be cool. So the word came back that he liked it. And he said he did want to do it if he had time. And then some time went by and he said, of course you can't do it. But he had driven his tape over in his car across London to Mike Stone's house. And Mike Stone was their engineer, did all the Queen albums. In the office in New York, they said Michael was in New York working on a Kiss record. And at that point, we had met Bill O'Coin. He had come to Boston and seen us, and he's from Boston as well. And Rick Aliberti, his right-hand guy, he's from Boston as well. So we had that going on. And they liked it. They said, come down to New York and see what we can do for you guys. Of course, we went to the KISS office in Manhattan. I'd rather go home and drive cabs, I thought about it 2 seconds ago. We're in. What do we sign? Just give me the pencil.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake a lot of bands make, is signing things without reading them. That's in my book that's part of my book, is the business of contracts and lawyers and promoters and the little deals and the little wordings of little things in contracts that can
the small prints
for you in the future.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did negotiate a management contract with Bill Coyne. We were down in New York at the KISS office, 2 floors, Madison Avenue. Another building in LA, another floor. They had like 30 people working for the manager, full time. Great people, all the departments, promotion, production. They were in the production. They were confirming ELP how to do the staging, telling ELP how to do the stage. Where to get the trucks, where to get the lights, And we were fortunate at that point to be rehearsing at Brit Row, which is Pink Floyd's place on Long Island, and KISS in one room, or in the other room. And you go down this row of old warehouses on the docks in Manhattan, and push the button, and you go in the building, and it's all white chrome and glass and $1 million facility. And it's Pink Floyd's place in America. And we're in there rehearsing going, this is crazy, pinch me.
It is.
Movie cameras to this is after we did the record. We did the record in LA, New York, and London. And that was great. So we rehearsed in there. And again, we hadn't played almost 3 years live. So by the time we hit the big stage, that was the whole thing was, can you guys do this? We've been doing this since we were in high school. You can do it. We've played theaters and colleges, we got it. Trust me, we got it. So we brought it, So you're going to bring it? We said, we'll bring it. Watch this, And we did. And we were on fire. We had a great time. We played 20-something shows with KISS on that tour. And before that, we'd just done 5 shows in Texas with Journey and AC/DC. So that was a pretty trippy thing to be at those 2 bands. And then head to Atlanta, I think it was, and hook up KISS for another 20 cities. And when KISS wasn't working, because they did 4 days a week because of their schedule, we would go to other towns and headline some smaller place ourselves. So we were working 6 days a week.
Wow.
And taking
non-stop. Wow.
And some places we played at noontime and with them at nighttime.
Noontime.
Yeah, we did it in Cleveland. In Cleveland, we did a lunch live broadcast with WMMS, I think, MMS. MMR is Philadelphia, MS is Cleveland. We did a lunchtime thing, played live to Cleveland Agora, tore all the gear down, put in a truck, and drove out to the suburbs 30 miles away. And that night, played with KISS. And then
Look at that.
That's the life.
What a life.
So that was our beginning of that. That's where New England was going.
Okay.
And we were on fire. We had, like I said, 6 record offers. We signed with a new company called Infinity, which was run by Ron Luxemburg, who had been a big guy at Epic Records for a number of years. And he was starting his own company, had big backing, and had no other bands except us and Orleans and Spyro Gyra in the jazz category. And we thought, the thinking was he's got to make us famous because we have no competition. If we go to MCA, we're up against The Who and Tom Petty. Let's go down a list of MCA guys. And every week, 20 albums come out. It's Eddie Money this and Ted Nugent that. And there's only 20 people in the top 20. And if it's filled up 1 through 15 by Bob Dylan and Fleetwood Mac, then where are you going to fit in? Being a new band?
Chances are. That's right.
You have to bring a gun to the radio station. And that's the kind of manager you want, that guy. And that's like Peter Grant with Led Zeppelin. He did that stuff. There's a story of him hanging somebody over the rail in San Francisco. So you pay up or die. And he was a gangster type, a real gangster type.
I know. Yeah.
And there's those stories. But you want that kind of
that commitment, right? Yeah.
And again, in my book, I talk about David and Goliath of managers. That there's 2 kinds of managers you can have. You can have your cousin be your guy, and he's just the most honest, 100% working guy, 101%. But he has no connections to anything. Then you get Mr. Big, who manages Barry Manilow and Elton John. So that's great. But if he's with them, then that's not so great. And we knew that going into the Kiss world. And of course, Kiss is going to be the #1 focus. We'd always have a backseat to that, unless we got really fortunate and sold a gazillion records. But in the meantime, we have to, be cognizant that was going to be the case. But that's the kind of manager we want. I wanted a manager that could pick up the phone and scare people.
Right.
It makes the one phone call, people are shaking across the Atlantic and somewhere in England going, damn, and hang up the phone and done,
That's right. I better give them the gig. That's right. Exactly.
That's why we're paying 20%.
It's true.
Gross. So New England, like I said, we start off humbly and try to maintain that at all times. Never went to our heads. We didn't do any of that silly stuff. And in between, unfortunately for us, the story in New England is that between the first and second album, our record company blew up. While we were recording the second album, Explorer Suite, at that point, we used Paul. And Paul was great in the studio. I got to go back to Kiss. That it was suggested that would we consider Mike Stone as being the engineer and Paul, who had really never produced any other band, be the producer. And we thought, why not? Because a producer is kind of a coach. And there's two kinds of producers. There's a producer that can play music and go in and rewrite stuff like Mutt Lange and take Def Leppard, and for 7 months they're working on 3 chords. For 7 months it's the same part until it gets right. But when it's done, it's perfect. That's what you hire a guy like that to do. Or some people just have ears, like Clive Davis. He can hear Michael Bolton do something, saying, "Oh, change that one thing there," and they change that part, and it's a big hit. So there's those kind of guys with ears, guys that can play. And Paul had both. He had a lot of experience making records at that point in his life. They had just done Dynasty. They did their 4 solo albums, just did Dynasty. So we went out to Los Angeles and did all the music over again, just the way it was done in Philadelphia, but now on 24-track. And a couple of songs are maybe a little different tempo change here and there, but basically all the songs stayed the same. And Paul sings on "Don't Ever Want to Lose You" in the background, which is pretty cool. He said, "This is going to be a hit. I got to sing on it. Come on, guys, let me sing on it." So listen to the verses of "Don't Ever Want to Lose You." He's in the last downpour, through the door. You can hear his voice distinctly if you listen.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
End of every verse, you can hear his voice in "Don't Ever Want to Lose You." And at the end, in that song, comes out the guitar solo, bang into the verse. And he said, instead of going bang, go kabang. So we did that. Listen to the song now. Hear the kabang. That was his idea.
Oh, really?
And it worked, But he was good at being in the control room while we were playing, say, well, that's good, but, maybe that should be a little faster or slower or whatever.
Right.
Rather than taking off the headphones, put the guitar, you lose your momentum by doing that. Take everything off, go in the control room, put the other headphones on, listen to it, talk about it. Now, I think I'll buy a sandwich. I'm hungry. The whole thing gets lost. Meantime, you're in there playing, something again and again and again. And 2 hours goes by. Forget about food. Forget about anything.
Till you get it.
Working on the song.
Yeah.
And when it's done, you come back and that's it. That's the magic. You caught the magic.
Right.
And Paul caught the magic, and it was great.
That was good. So, Gary, you mentioned, the song and, all the love the details, but as you were recording, we all know that song made a huge impact. Did you have the sense that at that time that it could be a breakout moment when you were recording it?
We thought it was a pretty good song. All our record guys were calling it a dashboard slammer. It was their term for it. It's a slammer. To say in Boston, it's a slammer with the F word in front of it. And that was great to hear that. It was uplifting. That hope they're right, And when it came out, it hit the top 30, and we were on every radio station. And it was a great summer for us when the song came out. So we knew we had strong material. We were going to release "Hello, Hello" as the second single. Like I said, in the middle of that, the record company blew up, and we lost everything. And MCA came along to us, and Ron Luxembourg and Infinity said that he was going to work very closely with 4 or 5 bands, like Clive Davis or whatever. In the meantime, he signed 44 bands around North America in a year. Spent all the money they gave, millions of dollars. He spent all the money, living high in first-class hotels, limousines for himself. Signed 44 bands.
44, my goodness, wow.
Some good bands. And MCA called us from LA And they were sitting there going, now what?
Mm.
You know, go back to the cab company. It's 2 miles away from the studio here. We did the second record in Boston. MCA said they assigned 44 bands. And out of those 44 bands, they were going to keep 4. And we're one of the 4. So us and Rupert Holmes, Spyro Gyra, and the band Orleans. And we were all welcome to stay with MCA. We went to MCA with Bill Coyne and ourselves, flew out to MCA. And they promised us the world. When we asked about promotion, one-by-ones, and cutouts, and they're going, the guy saying, how do you know this stuff? And so I guess they taught us well.
Yeah.
All those things you see behind you, the autographed pictures, how to do interviews, how to talk to people, how to go to record stores to sign autographs. Sean Delaney was a big person in the Kiss world. It's kind of a not known fact to a lot of Kiss fans, but Sean was there from the very beginning. He was one of their bodyguards at one point.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy, if he says jump, you say how high. And he would rehearse with us on stage and say, you're moving wrong. Do this, don't do that. We had the video cameras, showing us playing. So look at that. Look at that dumb thing you're doing. You're doing it again. Like how silly you are. And it worked. And he'd say, if you're gonna move your hand, really move your hand so you can see it in an arena in the 40th row. If you just do this, no one's gonna see it. You gotta do that.
Yeah.
So little things like that. So when we got to this big meeting with MCA, we knew what questions to ask about the contracts and what they're going to do for us production-wise. They're going to say, we'll do a video. What kind of video? Where's it going to be filmed? Who's going to be the producer? What you paying them? We want to know. And the guys,
all the good questions. All the good questions.
So,
that's good.
And we took that meeting, and they promised a lot of things, and it felt good. And we literally walked out the door, and Lecture Records waiting on the front steps of the CA to take us to dinner. And that night, went to dinner with a lecturer who had been one of the companies in the beginning. And they, again, promised us the world. They're the home of Queen. We got Queen and the Doors. You guys are the American Queen. We got the Cars, and you guys from Boston. It's all good. Again, the Boston connection. And Ron and Alexa were signed to band Boston to Epic Records. So, again, Boston. We decided to go to Lecture Records. And it may not have been the brightest thing we ever did. We took the plunge. Took a year in court to get that straightened out. We lost the momentum of Explorer Suite, which is a pretty good record. Second album. Went on tour. Did a lot more touring with Cheap Trick and, long tours with Cheap Trick and Molly Hatchet, bands like that. And did the third record with Todd Rundgren, who was our guy who can play everything and be a great producer and an engineer. He can take the recording console apart and solder, get the soldering gun and fix the connections. Again, the green light's back on. He's that guy, great guy, the Wizard of True Star, the Wizard of Mink Hollow. He lived on Mink Hollow Road, where his house was. We recorded his house, not in Bearsville nearby in Woodstock, but at his own personal recording studio, which is really, really cool. And again, Electra didn't pick the wrong single. They picked the Explorer Suite to be the single, and it was right in the middle of the Knack and the Pretenders and the Clash and Elvis Costello and short hair, thin neckties, and everyone's calling us dinosaurs, like we're like sticks or Kansas or something. Then it's over. Okay, so we went on tour. We a lot of stories about that second tour. It was our FOAD tour, which was F Off and Die tour. We threw down a gauntlet that time. And from now on, no one's going to tell us what corner to stand in. We're not going to any corner. We're going to stand in the middle of the room, and you're going to hear about it. We beat up some journalists. We warred with a bunch of other bands. Had fights with Johnny Cougar backstage, throwing stuff, breaking stuff, all good stuff. Gloves came off. And then we went around. We'd been here before, learned our lessons, and proceeded to do that. And we decided to do a third record and decided on Todd. We were all serious Nas fans. Nas was a big influence for me back then. That record came out in 1968. And I thought, opened my eyes, and those songs were really cool. And they're like an English band, but they're from Philadelphia. And they went to England trying to be a more English band and broke up. And then Todd became Todd. So we had a song on that record that was like follow-up to, we thought, Don't Ever Want to Lose You, which is called Don't Ever Let Me Go. And it's got a lot of singing on it, got a cool guitar solo, and Todd Rundgren's playing harmony guitar. with John. We thought, this is pretty cool. It's like the Allman Brothers, this is, or like Layla's.
Yeah, right.
We got Todd Rundgren playing on a record. How cool is that? I'm playing Todd Rundgren. Pinch me. Those pinch me moments that you get,
Mm.
And there was another song we changed the lyrics to. And Todd wrote the lyrics. And it was called Be My Dirty Dream Tonight. Just a fun kind of goofy song, I like you, be my dirty dream tonight kind of song. We'll call it DDT. We thought that was funny. So he sends a copy to Elektra Records, the demo, and Elektra calls us from LA and said, the people in the office are dancing on the desks. This is a hit. You guys nailed it. This song is killer. This is the single. We're going, okay. You're the big bad Elektra, home of the Doors. Go for it. And every female and program director and music director in America said we were male chauvinist pigs and refused to put a record. Elektra dropped the band from the label. And now we're the big bad New England with 3 albums out, and we broke up. Like the Turtles or something. And just John quit the band. It kind of we at that point we're trying to replace him. We met Vinnie Vincent, who would join Kiss. And again, Kiss comes back into my life with that whole thing. And in fact, when we were auditioning people to replace John, Gene called us from LA and said, we're recording with a guy from Connecticut named Vinny Cassano. He's a great guitar player. He's got a great voice, and he writes really cool songs, but he's too short to be in Kiss. You can have him. I said, okay, give us his phone number. So Vinny flew to Massachusetts, and we learned his demo tape in the meantime, which was like Foreigners, really cool music. And he came and auditioned for us one night, right from the airport, right off the plane, played our stuff. He played Don't Want to Lose You and all those songs. Sounded pretty good. So this might work. And then we played his songs, and he couldn't believe it. He goes, oh, you guys are great. He goes, I can't find anybody in LA who plays like you guys. This is cool. What do we do with this? So we said, let's sleep on it. So next day we decided to start a whole new band. And we scrapped all the future auditions to keep doing them going. We all went to LA. Rehearsed with Vinny for about a little less than 2 months, and then the guys in Kiss said, okay, we changed our mind. You can be in the band. He became Vinny Vincent, and now I'm in LA going, now what?
Right.
Now what? So that brings us up to that point in my life. But again, Kiss connection. And Vinny joins Kiss. Yeah.
Once again.
And I'd seen Kiss. I mean, people say, well, how long did you know Kiss and everything? I had seen Kiss in Boston in the very early stages of them. They were the third act on the bill. It was them, somebody else, and Black Oak, Arkansas was the headliner. And I thought, I saw the costumes, and I thought, this is pretty strange. I was in my 20s, so I wasn't like a younger person, like 8 years old, going, hey, Marvel Comics, breathing fire, cool. I looked at it and said, this is different. This is different. Because they got a lot of flack for that. They got a lot of flack for that in the beginning. And I got to give him credit for that. And I thought Peter Criss was a great drummer. He did a drum solo. I thought, this guy's really good. And that's all I thought about it. The next 4 or 5 years went by, and we became New England. Then we hooked up in New York with those guys. So, but it kind of came out of my life, the Kiss world. And that's sort of how that came about.
So how did Alcatraz come into the story?
So now we're in LA, and Jimmy and I decided to stay in LA and play hardball. There was nothing for me to do in Massachusetts unless somebody in Aerosmith gets sick or something. Maybe I get a gig. But there was nothing going on there, any new bands that I, little known to me, Extreme was up and coming, but there's some really good bands in Boston, younger bands. But that was back then. At that point, it was 1982-ish, 83-ish. And I stayed in LA, and I was trying to join UFO and bands like that. Been to a few auditions for things like that. And Jimmy was doing the same thing. And I put an ad in the paper. And my friend Michael Monarch from Steppenwolf, who I'd play with in London, said, you want to get all these crazies are going to call you. I said, yeah. And I got about 50, 60 phone calls of, people who were just starting out, whatever. I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows a secretary at some record company. And we hope to get a gig at Joey's bar down the street. And I'm thinking, nah, next. And one night, this English accent calls, are you a bass player? Screaming at me, louder than anything. And he says he's managing his neighbor, Graham Bonnet from Rainbow. And they're looking for a bass player. He goes, oh, you're a bass player. I'm going, yeah, that's me. And And I heard Graham sing Since You've Been Gone. I thought, man, this guy's got it great for us. I remember distinctly driving through Laurel Canyon one afternoon in my car. And I heard Since You've Been Gone at Rambo. I said, they got rid of Ronnie Deal. This guy is great. And Ronnie Deal's great and all that, but I think Graham Bonnet is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, good for them. You know, I might have to go buy this record, buy the many records. It was that good. And here I am, like couple months later, and they said, you know, they want to start a band, not a solo band, but a band. Do I know a keyboard player? Because they're going to have Barrymore Barlow from Jethro Tull be the drummer. And do I know a keyboard player? I said, yeah, I know Waldo. He's like a mile down the street from me. I rang him up. I said, let's go meet these guys. Let's see what's going on. So on a Sunday morning, I went to the Hyatt House on Sunset where Led Zeppelin used to keep their thing in LA, and it's called the Riot House. They have 2 whole floors of debauchery going on there. We went to the hotel bar, and we were all just drunk by noontime, the 4 of us, just giggling, acting like crazies, talking about a band like Michael Schenker, like Rainbow, like Deep Purple, that kind of European kind of edge to it. Wouldn't be an American blues band or a boogie thing, or a lot of things in the 70s. A lot of the boogie thing was kind of dying out, and that kind of thing. And we decided that's what we wanted to do. And so myself, Jimmy, and Graham started rehearsing in his garage, a true garage band again. So Alcatraz was a garage band at one point. And they were talking about getting Sal Clemson in the band from Alex Harvey's band and Stone the Crows and everything. And he was on tour somewhere, couldn't get a hold of him. And Barrymore Barlow rang up from London saying, we were supposed to go to his house and rehearse. I thought, this is going to be really cool. He said, I got a call from Robert Plant. He wants me to be on his first solo album. Who's going to say no to that? Yeah, see you guys around.
That's right, exactly.
And that's how you want to play on Yngwie's first record, because of that connection. The manager got Barry to play on Yngwie's first record. So we had like a weekend to find a drummer and a guitar player, or lose this deal we'd worked on with a company called Rockshire. And through MCA, a guy from MCA was a big mucky muck at MCA, and he loved Jimmy Atkins in New England and turned us on this record company. And they would give us a deal with no demo, just on who was in the band at that point. And so we had to find 2 guys over the weekend. And the first person we auditioned was Lawrence Jubar from Paul McCartney's band, from Wings. Great guitar player, great classical guitar player, plays with Paul McCartney, can play anything. We played a song called SOS, which is on one of Graham's solo records with Cozy Powell playing drums from Rainbow. Jeff Beck, great drummer. Great song. I wanted to be on the first record, and it didn't happen, but it's another story. But anyway, we played the song. The first thing Lawrence said, can you turn down? And we said, this is not the guy. This is not the guy. Not happening. We had all the big stuff, you know. And the next day, Andy, the manager, rang up a friend of his and said, who ran a record store, who's the hot guy? And they said, Yngwie's in this band called Steelers from Sweden, young kid from Sweden. He's really, really hot. So he rang up Yngwie and said, you want to audition for Graham Bonnet and this new band we're putting together. And Yngwie thought it was a practical joke that his friends in the next room were making a crank call. Trying to crank him. Punk him. He didn't believe it. It took him like 3-4 minutes to say, no, this is the truth. Tonight, be at the studio. And he came in, and the Richie Blackmore clothes on, the same jewelry, the same go-go boots, the whole thing, the same kind of Stratocaster. It was like Richie with blonde hair. But he played that stuff note for note, knew that stuff backwards, upside down. Fabulous, great guitar player. He's about 20 years old. People say he was 15. He wasn't 15. He was pushing 21. But he was really, really good. And we had a lot of fun. And we decided this is it. And it took us a little longer to get drummers. We auditioned about 10 different drummers. Clyde Burr from Iron Maiden came in. We had Ainsley Dunbar, played Frank Zappa, Jefferson Starship, the Ainsley Dunbar Retaliation, monster drummer. But for different reasons that didn't fit out our schedules and things like that. One of them getting Janie Vina, who was more of a session guy, played with Alice Cooper. We also played for the Pointer Sisters and Ronnie Wood. He played with the Yellow Jackets, which is like a jazz fusion band. New York guy, really, really great chops. He had great jazz stuff as well as the heavy rock thing. A lot of drummers can be really good jazz guys, they're too light. And a lot of rock guys just go boom, 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 boom through the whole song.
Yeah.
So he had that perfect combination of some really fancy stuff loudly. And he got the gig. And that became Alcatraz. That's how it started off.
So Alcatraz had a much harder edge than New England. How did you approach your bass playing?
Everything I did in New England, I played with my fingers. And in the bass world, there's always this big discussion that you're not really a bass player if you play with a pick. And it's like, that's so stupid, because even Carol Kay, who played on Good Vibrations in Hawaii Five-O, she played with a pick. A lot of studio stuff is done with a pick because it's clearer. Gene Simmons would say, well, he plays with a pick. He thinks playing with your fingers is dumb. It doesn't cut through the PA. It's thumpier, you know. I played all the New England stuff with my fingers. I used long fingernails, and I also have some picks that are extenders of that. And you play differently. And a lot of times, people that play with their fingers are a little busier than guys that play with a pick.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of play a little fast with your fingers. You might get carried away playing too much. But it cut better. And when I started playing with Vinny, he said, you got to play with a pick. It's got to have that gung, 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 gung edge to it. And I listened to Gene when we were on the road, and they tested his bass through the sound system, and conk, 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 conk. It's like a freight train. My bass sounded really good, but his bass had that extra edge to it. And I took note of that, as well as John Entwistle and Chris Squire. A lot of guys had an edgier, cleaner, more of a mid-range tone as opposed to a bass low end to it, which gets kind of muddy down there with bass players. You have to watch out. If it's way too trebly, then it's tinny. It doesn't really sound to bass. It doesn't give you that thump. So you got to find a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah.
So that was the difference. I was playing my fingers. In New England, for our fourth album, we almost completed in demos a fourth album. And that record's out. We have a 5-record CD on Cherry Red Records. It's out now. And there's one disc on there of those demos that never got released. You can hear the band playing live in that little cottage just before we broke up. And it sounds great. You hear people talking, all of a sudden, boom. And then it ends and it's quiet again going. And did that every day. And I played in a folding chair from 5 feet away. Clyde Davis sat in front of me. Bill Coyne sat in front of me. Not the keyboards, not the guitar, but me. Both of them. And like 5 feet away. And I got big Ampeg at SVTs, and I'm pretending we're playing the Silver Dome, Madison Square Garden, the Forum. We're going for it, And so we entered the world of a little edgier thing, and we were at the right place at the right time. There was no heavy metal scene at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Maiden had their first album out, not first record, but their first record play. Run for the Hills was on the radio. That was the first anybody knew of those guys. So we were composers. We were all on the same level, and they were heavy and driving. And Michael Schenker was doing great. Loved the album The Grand Dude, Michael Schenker. Soul Attack's a great record. And I knew Chris and everybody I was friends with the Alex Harvey band. I lived in London back when they were, 6-7 years before that. Ted McKenna, the drummer, stayed at my house in Boston when I got married. I slept on the floor, and his wife slept in my bed in my flat. Boston, way back in the mid-'70s, when we're all really nobodies. So we had that family of things going, New England, and so I'm kind of in the Kiss tree, and I'm in also in the Deep Purple tree too, being descended of both those great bands. So that's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And on the Kiss tree, I'm on there twice. Once for being with Vinny, and twice for being with Paul.
With Paul, yeah. And, so Gary, touching base on your work with Alcatraz and New England, speaking of songs, were there any songs from either band where you felt this is the best of me? So this is me actually in music for those two bands. Can you kind of identify some of the songs that?
There were a lot of great songs. Like "Don't Ever Want to Lose You" is great. One of my favorite songs on the record is "Shall I Run Away," which is a quieter song. It had a middle part. It's one of the songs that did get changed. It had a middle part that went into like a Genesis kind of soundy thing with just the mellotrons and the quiet guitar parts, kind of medieval sounding, very English progressive rock band for the times, I guess like Genesis would do. And it was really beautiful. But we decided it was too long, and that part got chopped out. But if you go to that 5-record CD, you can hear the original part.
Oh, okay.
My bass lines in that record, I'm really proud of what I did on the record. Not that they're fast and furious, but they're melodic and sweeping. There's a lick in "Don't Ever Want to Lose You" at the end of the choruses. And you don't really get to hear it on records. There's so much going on in some spots. Just a real quick little homage to criss-cross.
Oh yeah, okay.
John recorded a band in Boston. They did it acoustically, and a few years later, they said, "What are you playing in there?" He wrote the song, but he didn't write the bass part. And I said, "I do this with all of them." He goes, "Wow, that's cool." But I'm proud of that. Alcatraz, we had some great songs. I love General Hospital, but that was a great song. We just released an album, Live in Japan record with that song's done on, and it's me, Jimmy, and Graham, and Mark Banquetria, who was in the Grand Bonnet Band, in Conrado Pestana, was in the Grand Bonnet Band back then. And that was a lot of fun to play that song. But we didn't get to play it live. For some reason, Graham didn't want to sing it. One of those songs he decided live, it's not the same as the record. You try and put songs together for live, it's a different thing than just listen to a record.
Right.
You can't play too many slow songs. People start walking away no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're opening act, now you got 7 songs. You really got to go out there 7 songs and bang. There's no time to do. New England had a lot of like Nothing to Fear, pretty guitar things. Got a great Rush story, the New England Rush story. We played in Lansing with those guys in our first tour. So it was 1979 in Lansing, the small theater. They were the headliner, really the band. And we had built a stand for John's acoustic guitar to be held up so that he could play the guitar in an intro.
Yeah.
And then step back in the dark, and somebody in the crew could grab the stand of the guitar and whisk it away, and boom, without hesitation, into the big loud thing. And Geddy Lee and his guys came out and soundcheck. Go, "Where'd you guys get this? We need this. Where'd you guys get this?"
They wanted to borrow it from you guys.
From Boston. We made it. Hirsch had a pile of drum hardware in the corner, broken drum stands, broken everything. He would just smash drums and throw it in the corner next, So the crew took a cymbal stand. They bent everything, claws, and put rubber on it, tape, and it held the guitar nicely. And it was perfect. In those days, you couldn't buy anything like that. Didn't have it.
Right.
And
It was custom made.
That's cool, man.
I love it.
We did it ourselves. You guys are cool. So we were friends that day. It was really good. And they played, and I think we got the better crowd response. We played Don't Ever Wanna Lose You. They had no big hit record at that time. There was no Tom Sawyer yet, I don't think. But they were headlining. They were doing great. But they've been together for 4 or 5 years too. So we were playing catch up. But we're catching up quick.
Yeah.
That was fun that day to meet those guys and talk to them and share that, because we're all the same age. Those guys, myself and Paul and Ace, Gene, we're all the same age. So we all came up listening to Free and Jeff Beck and
the
Terry
same
Reid
stuff.
and all these cool things. So it wasn't like I saw any of that and had a defining moment of seeing a Kiss gig or something. But I was really turned on by the first King Crimson album. That caught my ear. I liked The Nice a lot too before that, and who Keith Emerson was. But I loved Greg Lake's voice. I loved how he played the bass, even though he was a guitar player. And I loved that very first Court of the Crimson King record, all that medieval spooky kind of stuff with the flutes. And I said, I've got to find a band like that. And I went to England for almost a couple of years looking for that kind of band. I wound up getting it in Boston, became New England, where Jimmy had all the mellotrons and had that sound. That few bands had that sound. It's the sound the Moody Blues use. It's the flutes in Strawberry Fields. That bloop, bloop, bloop.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The keyboard.
Right.
They had one of the very first ones, And actually, a guy in Connecticut bought the rights for that company. It's an English company. And they're very temperamental because it's 56 tape recorders in line that go 8 seconds. You get the note for 8 seconds as a loop. So you have to play it a certain way.
That's how they okay. That's how
the loop comes back up. Otherwise, it goes dead.
Okay. Oh, wow.
You got to float on it. And we'd be playing. Jimmy's kicking it, shoving it, and saying bad things about it because they were very not like English sports cars. Look cool.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. Yes. Sir.
So it was English. So a guy in Connecticut bought the rights to me. He was the main guy. He had the logbook that Paul McCartney bought 15 of them. Mick Jagger bought 20. They were giving away for Christmas presents to their friends.
Really?
Wow. All the serial numbers. And Jimmy's was number, 101. He had number 197. You can see number 12. Paul McCartney bought number 12, and Pete Townsend had one, number 60. That was way cool stuff back then.
That was funny.
And not many bands had that. So people saw in New England, they hear all the strings and this orchestral thing go, well, it's only 4 guys on stage. We had no tapes. We weren't doing what's going on today. We weren't playing tapes. We were all singing.
Tracks. Yeah.
Playing. I had bass pedals. I played bass, had bass pedals. Jimmy played the keyboards, had bass pedals on the Hammond and a mini mo. We had 4 different bass parts going sometimes at the same time. Plus he's playing the melody on another hand of a piano part and singing. And it sounded like 9 guys. Like a big band like Chicago or Blood, Sweat, and Tears would sound with 9 guys or something.
Real musicians, that's what it is.
Proud of that. But Alcatraz, a little more stream, a little less of that. Not so much in the strings department. Definitely now acoustic guitars. Suffer Me in the first record, the first Alcatraz record was cool. That was an acoustic kind of song. But basically it was balls to the wall in Alcatraz. And again, things were moving along that we wanted to be that kind of aggressive band. We didn't just want to go in that direction.
Yeah.
We didn't see ourselves as part of the new LA thing with Motley Crue and Rat and those bands and talking. They were from LA. They're all high school guys. Their first time around. Our band, everybody had been in arenas already and had record deals. We thought, they're there, we're here, we're Alcatraz, And none of us are from California.
Yeah, trying to position, trying to position the band in the right place, at the right time. That's
a lot of California guys like, well, let's go to the beach. Like, no, let's rehearse. Let's just nail this.
Right.
Hours, I'm gonna go to the beach, I gotta put my flip flops on, ride my bike. No. So I didn't join any California bands. I was here in the summer of '76 when Target broke up. Prior to New England. That's why I came back to Boston because I knew in LA at that point it was all kind of flower shirts and acoustic music and the Eagles. And not that that's not great music, Poco and all that, but that's all that was going on. And Van Halen wasn't around yet. And my friends had a band called Angel. I played with some of those guys before they were an Angel.
Yeah.
The East Coast thing. That, in fact, he was in the band when my friend saw Fatback play in Connecticut and raved about this band he had seen. My friend Barry was there as well. He heard about it. And later on, we came to England. The Angel thing, they were leaving, we were going up. It's funny how that changes.
This is great because you're making a lot of connections that I didn't know about. I'm learning so much from this discussion. It makes me want to read your book even more now. I could imagine what's in that book.
It looks like this.
Yes. So I want to talk about it. No bass, no party.
Right.
So was there ever like a now or never moment? Like I either write this book now or it's never going to be written.
Well, in a few years, I'm going to be 80.
Wow.
Really?
In a few months,
man. Oh my goodness.
I'm going to be 75.
Wow.
So we've been around the pike, as they say. Again, we were playing in blizzards and stuff. I had a Corvair van, a Chevy Corvair van back in the 60s. Rear engine Chevy Corvair. And that was we were driving in blizzards and stuff. We were 16 years old, playing who knows where in the woods. So we're coming from that place. And so people kept tell these crazy stories, about, meeting Rush and the guitarist stand or something. You got to write a book. And I said, that'd be kind of fun maybe, but I thought about it. I was approached by a company, my publisher's Canadian. Books We Love is in Calgary. And they rang me up last year and they said, we're going to do a series of musicians writing about being in the music business. Not about your grandmother or so much going to high school, but being in the band, what's that like, the nuts and bolts of that backstage thing, what really goes on. Not so much the parties and the cops came. I got those stories for sure. And I said, yeah. I thought about it. I thought, again, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And the great thing is it didn't cost me anything to make the book, which is, I thought, how can I say no to this? Mm-hmm. You self-publish with Amazon, looking $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 to get in the game. So that was preventing that. I wrote a children's book for my grandson 20 years ago. I have yet to get that out. $5 grand. I read it to him instead. Here's your book. PDF file. But I still want to put that out. But anyway, I thought about it. I said, I'll give it a shot. And I thought, well, I don't really have enough information to do a whole book. what if I did little chapters, little scenarios, like one day at a time? So I wrote 50 different chapters, small little excerpts, little sketches, I call them, of something that happened for a couple of days. But then I kind of interlocked them all together. Then they put it into a computer, and it just made it to 24 chapters, no matter where it ends. So there's some things that they're like, okay. But it came out great. Got a really great response, really great reviews. You can go to Amazon and look at it. So it's been very rewarding. I didn't do it for the money. There's not a lot of money in it. It was just a chance to tell my story. And I'm not John Whistler, Paul McCartney. I'm not just a bass player that played at your high school when you're in high school. And when those guys never gave up. A lot of my friends gave up, you know. I remember when we were in Boston rehearsing before we came to England, I'm like in my late 20s. My cousins have kids in school. They got houses, mortgages, cars. I'm living in this little apartment downtown Boston with the wackos, trying to play in a rock band. You know, going, how much longer can I do this? You know, I'm going to be 30 years old. That's old.
Yeah.
You know? Everyone said, you got to go to college. You got to get that whole thing about getting a second career. I always thought, why? How are you going to get good at one thing for doing two things? You're not going to be good at either one.
Yeah.
You have to specialize.
Sure.
You have to make a mistake and say, I'll be a teacher. I'll be a good teacher. And I'll get a haircut. I'll do that.
True.
I'm not going to try and do both.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So I just followed my heart, and I wrote a book about it from the beginning. Starts off at day one, ends up to like last week. It goes up to the last Alcatraz record, the last tour we just did. But it's about the keyword's perseverance. And again, talking about some of the contracts and deals. We got sued for $1 million at one point before we ever got off the ground in federal court in New York City. It's like, thanks. You know, I'm just trying to have a stupid band. I'm sued for $1 million in federal court in New York City.
Yeah.
It's like getting worse than that. And we're trying to negotiate a record deal. They're going to run away and go, forget these clowns. There's a lot of bands we could pick besides these clowns. And they stuck with us. We fought that, and it's my book. We came out on top because we believed in it, and we had perseverance, and we were right. We told the truth, and we didn't do any snaky deals. We didn't burn out or, you know, sell your heart to the devil and all that stuff.
Yeah. You know, speaking of that, I just had a question, Gary. You know, oftentimes, you know, with some of the, you know, rock musicians' books, you know, they just talk about, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, kind of tell-all story. But you seem to have avoided that. Why was that important to you?
Because it's kind of I want to tell the story to both camps, both to young musicians maybe aspiring to take it to a record deal level and make it their profession, their career, and also people, just regular people that are fans of bands and go to concerts, and, you know, to hear how the Eagles did their fourth record deal or something, or why they had a fight, why did the band break up at this point, and what happened to this guy, why is there a new guy in the Eagles, and tell the story of how bands, it's all about evolution.
Mm-hmm.
The band keep evolving. Like I said, I'm playing in a band with Barry Brandt. One day he becomes a band called Angel.
Yeah.
You know, I see some band in Boston called Kiss, you know, so that's nice. And then 4 years later, we're in Manhattan, we're friends. You know, how'd that happen? And you meet all these people as you go along. And so I put that in the book. And like they said, the publishing company wanted to be about the music business and not be telling about what girlfriends I had or what parties I went to. It's my favorite kind of drug that I would take.
Yeah.
Any of that. And I got stories about, you know, I got a great New England versus the Arkansas State Patrol. I got a great Alcatraz versus the Secret Service from Quantico, Virginia. We won.
Really?
We're in the Kiss tour. We
Good
won
story.
that. Thank you so much. This guy's going to stab my neck. I got those stories. We walked away, you know, didn't go to jail. But everyone's got those books. I mean, a lot of books. It says right in the back cover the same thing, that it's not. It's an intense journey into the heart of rock and roll. You're not going to hear the stories about sex, drugs, and girls and motels and all that stuff. It's an account of the business of making music.
Right.
This was my own personal story as a conduit to tell that story.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll put a second book out and tell all the party stories. I'll name names.
No. So was there a story in the book that you were kind of hesitant to include, but you're glad that you did?
No, I thought about it a lot. You know, I read everything at nighttime for about 6 months, in a chapter at a time. I wake up in the morning and go, okay, I wrote that last night. Let's look at it. What did I write? How was I writing about it? And I think I got through it pretty good. There's a few extra things I wish I had written. Like I was just telling my wife earlier today that there's a line saying I was moving to Hollywood where snow only exists on the mountaintops. And I should have wrote, I'm moving to Los Angeles, a town where snow only exists on mountaintops and coffee tables. I wish I'd written that. He's like, why did I write that? That was cool.
That was good.
That kind of thing. I mean, maybe I could have mentioned a couple of friends here and there or something in my story. Just a friendly book. I'm not blaming anybody for anything that happened. Anything happens, my own fault, being in the wrong place at the right time, or whatever. You know, I take credit, and also take the bumps, the good times.
Yeah.
So
if a young musician, you know, read your memoir, okay, so what do you hope that person to take away from it? So what would you like them to kind of, you know, get from your book?
If they're going to do music, take it seriously. Go through the proper channels, meet the right people, weed out the fakers from the real people. The people can, you know, are you talking to a guy like Clive Davis, or are you talking to some flim-flam guy that's going to steal your car tomorrow morning and the car keys and your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Maybe your favorite shirt too. You know, and the record, the contracts, talk about, you know, there's things like in contracts where you sign, you know, the big deal, management contracts.
Yeah.
So say you make some money and you want to buy your mother, it's kind of like getting itchy, and you buy her a Hallmark greeting cards franchise at the mall.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a little shop. So as your manager, who gets 20% of your gross profit, he gets it before all the bills are paid. They
Exactly.
get over, which may be nothing. Now, does he get to get his 20% of your band plus your mother's new store? Or does it say in there, music only, nothing else? If I meant the next candy bar, he doesn't get any of that. And you know, so you have to watch out for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these little half-cent increments of royalties, the singles, you know, 3.5 cents, 3.7%. The small half-penny things, 1 penny, half a penny, makes a big difference in your career. Like a guy like Bob Seger, guys in Led Zeppelin, they get money every quarter, and they're called mailbox money. It's the royalties from getting airplay on radio stations. Yeah. And all the bands that made it in the 60s are still making money. They made records. They made 8-tracks, did it again on cassettes. They did CDs. Now they're making vinyl again. And they cassettes now. And if you're in that camp, to have a song like that, the big hit, you can work forever. And it's very, so all that money adds up. And those, you know, when you go into a restaurant or a bar, hit the jukebox, the owner of the restaurant is paying a fee to the rights company like BMI or ASCAP to play that song. And you have to be aware of who's going to get that half cent. And a lot of the guys will say, well, we're going to invest 20 grand into you or something, so we're going to take 200 when it comes in. You know, we're going to take 220. Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then when I'm doing that, they take all the money and you wind up you're broke. And I'd say in my book, even Billy Joel, he got robbed by his bookkeeper was his brother-in-law, his business guy. Got him for millions, almost made him bankrupt right in the middle of the height of his career back in the early 80s. And that can happen. Yeah. So we had to be watching all that. And I tell a story on how in high school we had a manager that we thought was stealing from us and what happened to him.
So this is it's a good segue to our final 2 questions. So now after writing this book, what would you like your musical legacy to be? What do you want fans to say about Gary Shea 50 years from now?
So, well, never stole my car. He played some cool bass parts here and there. A bad guy.
Mhm.
Pretty good grandfather.
And what's in the future for you?
Well, we're still doing the Alcatraz stuff. I just played on Hirsch Gardner's solo album, his third solo album. And I guess we're making a video for that. I found out last night. Like, she's going to call me in a couple hours. Wants me to be in it.
Nice.
How much money you got? So I might do that.
It's been truly an honor, Gary, to have you on the show, and the fact that you were, sharing all the stories and, so much information, so many names, so you've been involved in so many things over, your long career that, it was fascinating and very enriching for us to get to talk to you and get, and we highly recommend, people getting your book, because this is a really, really key part of business, trying to get, input from someone like you, that it's not only about music, it's not only about fun, but there's a business side that, you need to take care of in a good way. So really appreciate, here, you've been here with us. So thank you very much, Gary. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys.
Gary, you can tell why you made it through the music industry. Like you said, it's not just about the playing, not about the songwriting, but you have to be intelligent. You have to be able to work the system and know the system. And from your stories, you went through quite a lot, and it took a lot to get to where you are today. But that was through a lot of hard work. So good on you. It's truly an inspiration to young people, young musicians. And like Claudio said, people should read your book, because it's not just about the music. You have to know the business aspect of it, or you're not going to survive.
And I try to tell it in a formal way, like we're talking just now. That's people have made a lot of comments. It's like having a conversation as opposed to reading a textbook or different kind of book.
Right.
So that's very rewarding to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. It's rewarding to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bonsoir from Florida.
Messy.
Beautiful.
To the KISS Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.